Hi guys, welcome to this upload for you guys today. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. If you are new to this channel, you're more than welcome to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you'll be in and updated anytime when I do any videos right here on Wrestling Fan Open Mic Night. Now I just want to say to one of you guys is that I've not watched Maple Leaf Wrestling yet, but it's in the pipeline today to watch because I was just absolutely burned out from um job hunting yesterday. I was absolutely really burned out. So I was just like woke up early this morning and I saw this last night, but like I was saying that I was really burned out and I literally wanted to talk about this and get it off my chest that I want to say this as a wrestling fan. I don't like counter programming. I never have, never will, because if you are a honest wrestling fan to yourself, more than what the internet is making us portray as tribalist, whatever brand we watch, and you watch whatever. But when it comes to counter programming, it's how to put it, it's old tactics that never die. To get to people to watch your product. Like I said, oh, I'm here. No, I'm just going to jump in front. No, I'm here. That sort of thing. But when I think I did mention this in a video ages ago about counter programming. There'll be a time and a place where there'll be the same city or same state, same date, same time. This is where it gets to the point where it gets frustrating, annoying, no matter what brand you watch. You know, but if you're an open wrestling fan that watches all, granted I don't watch WWE anymore, as you can tell, but I still talk about it because it still comes on my feed towards obviously TikTok, towards YouTube, to Facebook. It dominates my fucking timeline regardless. I don't need to watch the product. I see fans' opinions, I see videos from WWE themselves, and so on. So I know what goes off, even though I don't watch the product. But the problem where it lies where this is more fuel to the fire, even if AEW is doing it, I'll be saying this, I do not condone it to a point. But when you've literally got WWE stepping on AEW's toes, doing Worlds Collide in Chicago at the same time as All Out, which is technically the Fallout pay-per-view from All In, which you hope All In start building storylines towards obviously All Out, or they're going to do it on Dynamite or Collision onwards. You hope for a good show and a good storyline, but I've noticed when WWE have always done this, and I'm not saying AEW does it as well because people say straight away because of Maple Leaf Wrestling last night was counter programming the likes of AEW, but they've always, as far as I can remember, Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling's always put out their shows on a Thursday anyway. But and then you literally got it on my AEW. Yeah, fair enough. You may class that as counter programming. I don't recall this being classed as counter programming, but I've noticed as of late to a point that WWE is the one that is always the trigger. And this is not me throwing shade towards the likes of WWE. This is me being honest as a wrestling fan. But when you look at the bigger picture of everything that's going off, it's only Worlds Collide. We could say, oh, it's only Worlds Collide. But it's like Triple A or Triple A versus NXT, or is it going to be WWE main roster? They're going to get to the point where they're that desperate to put CM Punk on the card, just to get their extra butts in seats. Sometimes they can't shift. And I'm not saying that AEW have problems with shifting tickets. They're having problems shifting tickets. Is the shift of the dynamic towards professional wrestling in 2026? All wrestling companies suffer it at some point, because it's cost effective. Although there's a lot of resurgence in ticket sales recently towards All In. I'm not expecting it to be a sellout in Wembley. They can wrestling fans take the piss all the time about Wembley. I'm sick of seeing it, but then you got to realize if you are going to sit there and compare, but I'm not going to compare. But a lot of people saying, but look at SummerSlam, that's not shifting. People don't realize the counter program situation when it comes to stuff like this. You are making the IWC a toxic environment. You've towards war with both brands. The amount of times I've literally had my opinions, but obviously I've not taken them to heart. Some people may take it to heart. I don't take it to heart because at the end of the day, at the moment, I need as much wrestling as I can get my eyes on. Not saying I'm watching it 24/7, but just to keep my break from that reality of my life at the moment. That's why I'm doing that 4-day trip uh, end of next month in London. Because at the end of the day, granted I've got a roof over my head, but I'm on about like finding a job. At least one thing that gives me that break towards my escapism from my own life. At the moment I'm annoyed being unemployed. Don't get me wrong. I've applied for 15 jobs since a week last Monday. I've had no one get back to me. It's just a hard struggle, because you use that wrestling from escape from reality. And then when you have that reality sort of hit, like with counter programming in the same city, if I was in America, you are forcing a massive divide between fans even more than what social media portrays, and that's just me being honest. Yes, I'm in the UK, but if I was, or Nottingham, or England, whatever you want to class it as, I'm fortunate that at the moment I don't see counter programming the way other people may see counter programming. But I do see it as like the third person looking in. I'm like, you making a divide on the internet right now. Before I did this video, right now, umping an RM is like saying AEW's better, WWE's better. Oh, I'm going to that show. Oh, I'm going to that show. But the problem where it lies, are you really going to be putting your hand in your pocket to literally go to those shows that you say you want to go to? That's the catch when it comes to professional wrestling, because it was great back in the 90s when I thought, okay, you look at the likes of Monday Night Raw went head to head with in the same, I think it was the same state or the same town, not all that far apart, and they were about doing Nitro when to take in Fade. Now, this day and age, you won't probably get any sort of backlash of sort to do that sort of thing, but it'd be interesting if they did in 2026. You see the likes of AEW trying to invade their product, or you got the likes of WWE invading their product. Would be an interesting thing aspect to obviously those sort of antics. So when I look at the bigger picture of this, you're making people choose where their money's going now. Because sometimes when I say about WWE, overpriced compared to what AEW, this is the true factor is when it comes to professional wrestling, when you literally look at how much you can really afford for a show, people may brag they go to WrestleMania. This day and age, I would not go in slightest. I'd rather invest my money in AEW tickets because they're more affordable and for the value. The best thing about this AEW trip, I'll be honest with you, Paddy's kept it secret where we're actually sitting, but I've paid for them until we go to the event, which is a bonus because I like that aspect of it. But when you literally look at the bigger spectrum of professional wrestling fans around the world. You know, there's a massive divide already. You know, I've seen it on TikTok. I'm part of the divide. You know, sticking up for AEW more than WWE. Although, yeah, fair enough. If WWE do something right, they do something right. You know, because people don't realize how much TKO are actually in a revolving debt, and they've not made their money back, and that's why we're suffering on our tickets, everything like that. They've pretty much sugarcoated it and saying glamorizing whatever to get you to buy those tickets, you know, to help pay that debt off. And like I said to you in many videos before, it's going to be a hard time for them. It proves how hard that TKO themselves are really struggling. This past week, obviously, we saw a lot of fucking reports that WWE private jet is on for sale. That what Vince used to use, you know, and that's saying something. If that's going for just like I think it's 10.8 million, sorry, not billion, up for sale, it just shows you what how much WWE are literally trying to sell off a little efforts to make a little bit of extra cash to try and pay that debt off. You know, like when they advertised, I think it was Survivor Series War Games, they were trying to claim a chair was used in the women's match when there was no sort of entity towards that evidence proving the fact that that female wrestler used it against such and such, you know, and then obviously the thing got removed because a lot of fans pointed it out to them. So they're trying to make those little bits of extra cash. This ain't me having a dig before anyone thinks it, but that's what I mean. It's like when you see this, and I'm thinking, this is where I feel like, in a way, it's going to be an interesting date, or when it actually falls, when All In's on and Worlds collide, because end of the day, you are trying to make your fans choose. You know, it's like the old Matrix scene: take the red pill or the blue pill. You decide. You know, because end of the day, that's how the world at the moment of professional wrestling, when it comes to All Out and Worlds Collide, that's what I mean. It's like the only way I feel like if WWE was technically trying to rival the likes of AEW, even though AEW's been around a shorter time, charge around the same prices. Because end of the day, people do love professional wrestling as it is in a whole. That's why when you see the likes of AEW use smaller venues, you know, people are criticizing now why they're not using bigger venues, but you were the guys that were criticizing the likes of AEW using bigger venues, but not filling it in the seats. You know, it used to be called Tarp Mania, if anyone could remember that. So but that's what I mean. You look at the massive divide towards that, and the problem where it lies, you can't hardly choose between the both. You know, don't get me wrong; they're often their own qualities that people attract to each brand. You know, when this actually happens, when we see matches start being confirmed and everything, and storylines building towards that. And I just think to myself, when I'm literally looking at this and the bigger picture of this, right? Obviously, yes, I'm going to be watching AEW instead of obviously watching Worlds Collide, and that's my own preference. You know, if I was going to the show in Chicago, I would be picking AEW because I know full well their prices will be a lot cheaper than what WWE are charging. You know, because there's going to be a massive outrage. There's already an outrage between fans. They won't admit it, but there is an outrage. I've seen numerous of times. Every time when a show goes on sale, tickets go on sale, they're outraged about it. But there's some way or form, some of these fans that are outraged about it still make an effort to go. It doesn't make any sense. If you're outraged about the prices, don't force yourself to go. Don't make yourself like a person that wants to be there all the time, to captivate in the moment. You know, it's just one of those things, guys. I know as a wrestling fan, but when you literally see the divide between fans at the moment on the internet, it won't be, it's not as bad yet, but it will be in due course. What I mean is, nearer the time. So after All In, we'll actually see the backlash starting. You know, oh, AEW is going to use tarp on that venue, or they're not going to sell as many tickets. Or it could go on a 180 that both shows sell out. That'd be a massive achievement in itself in the same city. To have two wrestling shows, two of the pioneer wrestling shows now at the moment. I don't class TNA as a pioneer show. Sorry, I do apologise. It had its time. It should have had its time. It should have shined by now, but it hasn't. It ain't got that it factor anymore. That's what annoys me about it. So I look at the bigger picture of everything, and I'm thinking, it's just mental. I don't like counter programming at all. Because at the end of the day, you're literally forcing it on your fans to pick who they really are fans of. If you know what I mean. If you're an open fan, like to watch all wrestling, I would hate to be in your shoes. I really would. Because I'll be honest with you, when I look at the Worlds Collide, that could offer what you're looking for, or AEW's offering what they're aiming for you as a wrestling fan. But this is the time when Tribalist is going to be running rife in a lot of people. That's the only time we'll tell is when you look at the ticket prices between both events, and then you're like, okay, my money's going to AEW or Worlds Collide. It's just one of those things, guys, that as a wrestling fan from a third person, I can see that with the way it's going to go, there's going to be a massive divide. A lot of people probably be banned on social media because of their outrage or something like that. Because, like I say, some people take comments and opinions to heart. I don't anymore. Because at the end of the day, I voice my opinions. I respect people's opinions, but I do when I do comment on people's posts or whatever, I'm expecting technically a reaction because that's a reaction that what you get on social media. That's what I mean. It just shows you the way the world works. But when you look at counter programming once again, and I'm thinking it's going to be an interesting day to see who sells the most. It's quite honestly when I say about the counter programming, when you look at the bigger spectrum of this, because you look at the likes of when AEW did Dynamite, then all of a sudden, TNA had a TV deal lined up to counter programming with AEW. Didn't work that way, did it? But then they decided to opt out and then move to a different night. There weren't a defeat, but that was a defeat in itself. I can remember the battles between not videos. Oh my god, between comments between fans when that actually materialized. But I used to watch both back then. I used to watch one, talk about one, watch another, talk about another. I was fortunate used to have Thursdays off, so I had plenty of time. So yeah, that's just my thoughts and opinions, guys. This is a true extent, but the problem is where it lies. That I feel when I look at the likes of WWE, yes, they are using their other programming, but they've not even attempted to use main roster as of yet towards someone in the same city. That proves how much they've got faith in their main roster, isn't it? If you think about it, you've really got to think about that. They don't have faith in their own main roster. Like I've said in previous videos, they're making too many comebacks. They're not making future stars. They're not making risks. They could easily put someone in the main event picture by now, but they haven't. You're relying on the likes of John Cena and CM Punk to sell your 2 days at SummerSlam. When I've seen the card being confirmed, I'm thinking this is just a glorified Raw or a SmackDown, and that's me being honest. The emphasis of towards like Liv Morgan not even defending the title. Rhea Ripley's still got the title. She's out injured, but she's not vacated the title. This is why I say they don't treat WWE as well as they once did, and that's just me being honest. If you can't take honesty, don't watch my videos. Simple as that. Turn off. But that proves how much that company is in a mess. It needs repairing. Bringing people back is beyond me. I already did a video on Baron Corbin. Now you're teasing towards looks like Big Cass and Enzo Amore are actually going back. What to? You're making a big massive. When tag teams were great when they were actually around, they had great matches with American Alpha and so on. But you're bringing them back to what? There's not even a tag team division. There's not even a decent tag team on there can actually say it's a tag team, and that's just me being honest. I love tag team wrestling, but when you literally see how much you've emphasizing Big Cass coming back and showing clips of the crowd and all this lot, remember your crowd ain't what it once was. Yes, they spend the money, but you change the audio. I I can tell when you've changed the audio when you want people to follow your decisions to voice your opinion at the shows, and it's been changed because WWE didn't like it or TKO didn't like it. Their old excuses were, "Oh, it's all about the shareholders." I've not once seen them come out and say that recently. But that just proves how much TKO have actually got faith in to make a little bit of money, whatever they can. Don't get me wrong. This is not shooting shade. This is me being honest with you. That when I see the likes of what WWE are doing, but it proves they don't have faith in the main roster to rival the likes of AEW in the same city. If it was it'd be more of a different impact, even though this would make an impact in wrestling history. But it proves that WWE does not have faith in their own main roster, even though you're making all these comebacks, all these call-ups, and then some of them don't get creative direction. It's mad to think when I look at the bigger picture of certain things. It's like Lyra Valkyria, what you're doing with her right now, just reminds me of a Nikki Cross. That you could have easily done with that. It's bad enough when you did release them. The likes of Karrion Cross and Scarlett Bordeaux, then you ended up giving the likes of Aleister Black and his missus what they could have done with them. So you're trying to fill in the void to keep people happy, but you're not, in a way, keeping people happy. Yeah, there is WWE fans that is happy with the current product. But if they literally had faith into that main roster, they could have easily done that as a pay-per-view on the already PLE with the main roster. The more than worlds collide. You know, people are going to make this a massive impact in the IWC, don't get me wrong. But it's kind of, I don't feel like they have faith in their own brand anymore. They're just throwing any shit that people will buy tickets for or merchandise for. And that's me being honest.